Today we're talking about Nissan and Infiniti. 52 facts about the company that built Godzilla, fought Porsche, made talking cars with tiny records, turned gamers into race drivers, and somehow made some of the weirdest decisions in Japanese car history. Number 1. Nissan did not even start with the name Nissan. Their first car was sold under the name DAT in 1914. Then, years later, they made a smaller car and called it Datsun, like "Son of DAT." But there was one problem. Sun sounded like loss in Japanese, which is not exactly the energy you want when selling cars. So they changed it to Datsun with AU. Basically, the name was fixed because the first version sounded cursed. Number 2. The whole idea of using attractive models to sell cars can be traced back to Nissan. In 1936, Nissan hired 4 women to work in showrooms and help present cars to customers. Sales went up, and those women became known as the Miss Fairlady staff. So if you have ever been to an auto show and seen people staring more at the models than the cars, Nissan helped start that whole tradition. Number 3. Nissan's real enemy was not always Toyota. For the GT-R, Nissan was aiming directly at Porsche. When they were developing the R32 GT-R, they wanted to study the Porsche 959, but Porsche refused to sell them one. So Nissan got someone else to buy it secretly, shipped it to Japan, studied the all-wheel drive system, and built their own version called a Tesla. Porsche said no, and Nissan basically answered with Godzilla. Number 4. Nissan has had a serious identity crisis over the years. The company has gone through around 29 different logos, which is ridiculous for a brand that wants people to remember it. Some brands spend decades protecting one logo. Nissan looked at brand consistency and said, "What if we panic every few years?" Number 5. Turning off stability control in the Nissan 400Z is weirdly annoying. In many cars, you press a button. In the Z, if you want it fully off, you have to crawl under the dashboard, press the brake, and find a hidden little button. And the best part? You have to do it again every time you start the car. Nissan built a sports car and hid the fun switch like it was a government secret. Number 6. The 1988 Nissan 240 SX was the first Japanese car with a heads-up display. That sounds like something you expect from luxury cars or futuristic prototypes, but Nissan put it into a car that later became famous for drifting, engine swaps, and being abused by teenagers with welded discs. The 240 SX had future tech before it became internet drift bait. Before we continue, if you enjoy videos like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. These videos take a lot of time, research, editing, and money to make, and your support really helps us keep going. Thank you. Number 7. The Infiniti Q30 might be one of the most confused cars ever sold. It was designed by Infiniti teams in America and Europe, built in Britain, used a lot of Mercedes parts, shared production with Nissan crossovers, and somehow ended up being part hatchback, part crossover, part coupe, part SUV energy. It is the kind of car that feels like 5 departments had one project and nobody was allowed to say no. Number 8. The R34 GT-R's famous Bayside blue color almost had a completely different name. It was originally going to be called Wandon Blue, inspired by the Wandon street racing route in Japan. But Nissan did not want the GT-R officially tied to street racing culture, especially because the midnight club scene had serious danger around it. So they changed the name, and honestly, Bayside Blue sounds cleaner anyway. Number 9. Nissan race cars often use the number 23 for a very simple reason. In Japanese, an I can mean 2, and san can sound like 3. So Nissan turned its own name into a racing number. It is simple, clever, and exactly the type of brand Easter egg that sounds obvious only after someone explains it. Number 10. The R32 GT-R did not get the nickname Godzilla in Japan. It came from Australia. When the R32 arrived to fight in Australian touring car racing, a magazine editor wanted a headline that made it feel like a monster. Someone suggested the Japanese word for monster, and the conversation eventually landed on Godzilla. So the most legendary Japanese car nickname was basically born in an Australian magazine office. Number 11. The Fairlady Z name came from a musical. Nissan's president loved My Fair Lady so much that he named the sports car Fairlady Z. That worked in Japan, but the American side looked at a serious sports car called Fairlady and thought, "Yeah, no." So in the US, it became the 240Z instead, which was probably the right call. Number 12. Most people pronounce Nissan wrong, or at least not how the Japanese name works. The brand's pronunciation is closer to Nissan, and weirdly, Nissan can also mean older brother in Japanese. So depending on how deep into car nerd territory you want to go, Nissan is either a car company or your older sibling yelling at you to stop buying CETs. Number 13. The S13 became one of the most famous drift cars ever, but Nissan did not build it for drift kids. Nissan has said it was originally aimed at educated single women, and that group made up a huge part of early buyers. Which is hilarious, because decades later, the S13 became the official car of coilovers, angle kits, and people saying, "It only needs a little work." Number 14. The Nismo 270R is one of the rarest S-chassis cars ever made. Based on the S14, it came with upgraded suspension, brakes, gearbox, body kit, and more power. Only 30 units were made, all for Japan. It is basically what happens when Nissan looks at the Silvia and says, "Fine, we'll make the cool version ourselves." Number 15. Nissan had a special company called Autech, and Autech built some of the weirdest and coolest Nissan projects. They made strange luxury coupes, special Skylines, a 4-door R32 GT-R for highway patrol, and even an S15 convertible with an electric hardtop. Nissan already had normal cars, but Autech was where the weird ideas escaped. Number 16. The Nissan Micra looks like a tiny harmless city car, but Nissan made a version called the Super Turbo. It had a tiny 0.9-liter engine that was both supercharged and turbocharged. That is absurd. Most small cars get fuel economy stickers. Nissan gave the Micra forced induction with 2 different personalities. Number 17. The Nissan Cube is one of the strangest interiors ever put into a normal car. The headliner has a ripple effect because the cabin was supposed to feel like a jacuzzi. The dashboard even had a weird carpet-like pad that people jokingly called cube pubes. And no, you were not really supposed to put anything on it. It was just there, being weird. Number 18. The first generation X-Trail had a steering wheel that could pop up to give you more room to change clothes inside the car. Why? Because Nissan worked with young people and surfers during development, and apparently they thought, "What if our SUV had dressing room energy?" That is very Nissan. Random, practical, and slightly insane. Number 19. When Nissan killed the Datsun name in the 1980s, it cost them around $500 million. They changed advertising, badges, dealerships, branding, and customer awareness across the world. The switch was so confusing that in some places, the Datsun you saw one month was suddenly a Nissan the next. It was one of the most expensive name changes in car history. Number 20. The 370Z looks a bit like a shark because the designer was watching Shark Week while working on it. That is not a joke. The headlights, face, and shape took inspiration from shark-like forms. So if the 370Z looks like it wants to bite something, blame Discovery Channel. Number 21. Nissan and Alfa Romeo once teamed up to make the Alfa Romeo Arna, and it was a disaster in the most predictable way. Nissan handled the design, Alpha handled the production, and somehow, the result got the worst parts of both worlds. It was like ordering Italian emotion and Japanese reliability, then receiving confusion with wheels. Number 22. Nissan once asked Yamaha to build an engine for the Fairlady Z. Yamaha delivered a 2-liter inline-six, but Nissan rejected it because they thought it was too weak. Yamaha then took that engine to Toyota, and Toyota used it in the legendary 2000 GT. That means Nissan accidentally helped push one of Toyota's most iconic sports cars into existence. Number 23. A man named Uzi Nissan owned the domain Nissan.com for his electronics business before Nissan tried to buy it. He refused, so Nissan took him to court. But Uzi fought for years and eventually won. It cost him millions, but he kept the domain. Imagine being one guy and successfully telling a global car company, "No, this is my name." Number 24. The Nissan Qashqai once had an absolutely ridiculous number of variants. Before even choosing the color, there were thousands of possible versions and configurations. Nissan looked at a normal family crossover and decided it needed menu complexity like a video game character creator. Number 25. When the R32 GT-R launched, Nissan proudly claimed its ECU was basically unhackable. That lasted about as long as you would expect. Tuners cracked it almost immediately. If you ever want to motivate car hackers, just tell them something cannot be hacked. They will treat it like a personal insult. Number 26. Before Honda gave the world the NSX, Nissan built its own mid-engine sports car prototypes called the MID4. They looked exotic, used serious hardware, and later versions had a twin-turbo V6. But Nissan decided the project would be too expensive to produce. So instead of giving the world a Nissan supercar, they walked away and left us with one of the biggest what-ifs in JDM history. Number 27. Nissan once created a giant outline of India on a dry lake bed to celebrate India's Republic Day. Then, later that same year, Nissan sued India for hundreds of millions of dollars over an investment dispute. That is a wild brand arc. Make a patriotic map tribute, then show up with lawyers. Number 28. The 350Z has 3 little square design details repeated around the car, and nobody really knows what they mean. Nissan has never given a clear official explanation. Even car people who normally know every weird detail basically shrug and call them Z-squares. Sometimes a design cue is so mysterious it becomes famous for being unexplained. Number 29. Carlos Ghosn, Nissan's most controversial CEO, was arrested in Japan over financial crime allegations, released on bail, and then escaped the country in one of the craziest corporate stories ever. He reportedly hid inside a large equipment case and ended up in Lebanon. That is not an executive scandal. That is a Netflix thriller with a balance sheet. Number 30. The 300ZX was developed using CAD, which was still advanced for car development in the 1980s. It helped Nissan create a very modern, aerodynamic shape. In fact, the Z32 is surprisingly slippery even by modern standards. Nissan was using digital design tools before most people even understood how futuristic that was. Number 31. Nissan built a rear-wheel drive test mule for the R32 GT-R just to see how it would behave. The answer was badly. With turbo power and no front-wheel help, it acted more like a muscle car and struggled to put power down. So Nissan scrapped that idea and went all in on all-wheel drive. And thank God they did, because that decision helped create Godzilla. Number 32. The R33 GT-R gets bullied by fans as the awkward middle child, but it deserves more respect. It was the first production car to post a sub-8-minute Nürburgring lap time. That is not slow. That is not boring. The R33 may not be the fan favorite, but the stopwatch did not care. Number 33. After the R34 GT-R ended production, Nismo bought 20 of the best examples and turned them into the legendary Z-Tune. Almost all were painted Z-Tune silver, except one owner fought for over a year to keep his car midnight purple. That stubbornness made the car even more special, and now it is worth insane money. Sometimes whining pays off. Number 34. The R35 GT-R had help from some unexpected places. Lotus helped with development work, and the infotainment system was created with input from the people behind Gran Turismo. That is why the R35's displays felt like a racing game. Nissan basically said, "If this car is going to feel like a PlayStation boss fight, let's bring in the PlayStation people." Number 35. The Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance was mostly stable for years, until Carlos Ghosn tried to shift power inside the alliance. Then French politics got involved, including Emmanuel Macron when he was economy minister, and suddenly a car partnership turned into international tension. Nissan drama does not stay in the garage. Sometimes it becomes France versus Japan. Number 36. Nissan used to make rocket engines. Their aerospace division also helped put Japan's first satellite into orbit. That is the kind of fact that sounds fake if you only know Nissan from Altimas and CDTs. Before some of their cars sounded like sad blenders, Nissan was literally helping Japan reach space. Number 37. The Nissan Versa became one of the last cars in America you could still buy with a 5-speed manual. That is weirdly charming. In a world of electric crossovers and giant screens, one of the cheapest cars on sale was quietly keeping the manual transmission alive like a broke hero. Number 38. In 1982, Nissan put a voice warning system into the Datsun 810 Maxima. But this was before modern digital audio, so Nissan used tiny little vinyl records under the dashboard with pre-recorded warnings. The car would literally play tiny records to talk to you. That is both futuristic and terrifying, like your dashboard is haunted by a polite robot. Number 39. The first-generation Nissan Versa had huge headlights, and they were not just there to look awkward. The shape was designed to guide air away from the side mirrors and reduce cabin noise. So yes, the Versa's strange face had a purpose. It may have looked surprised, but it was trying to be aerodynamic. Number 40. Nissan and Gran Turismo created the GT Academy, where gamers could compete for a chance to become real racing drivers. And it actually worked. Several graduates went on to race professionally. Nissan looked at people playing racing games and said, "What if one of these guys is actually fast?" Number 41. At Goodwood in 2010, Nissan showed up with GT-RS and 370zs wearing BMW, Audi, and Porsche logos like fighter plane kill marks. BMW and Audi seemed to take it pretty well, but Porsche did not like the joke and reportedly complained. Nissan removed the stickers and moved on. Porsche may build incredible cars, but Nissan proved they are way easier to annoy. Number 42. The 370Z was the first 6-speed manual car with automatic rev matching. Today, rev matching is common, but at the time it was a big deal. It let normal drivers make downshift sound clean and professional. Basically, Nissan gave people the sound of skill without requiring the skill. Number 43. Importing Skylines into America before the 25-year rule was a nightmare, and the Motor X story made it even worse. Motor X brought in GT-RS, modified some to meet US rules, then got tangled in lies, legal gray areas, scandal, theft claims, and chaos. Some cars are still considered questionable today. The Skyline was already forbidden fruit, and Motor X made it taste even more illegal. Number 44. The 350Z did not have perfect 50-50 weight distribution on purpose. Nissan gave it about 53-47, because under hard acceleration, the weight shifts rearward, and the car settles closer to the ideal balance. That is actually smart. Nissan designed the balance for how the car behaves when driven hard, not just how it looks on a spec sheet. Number 45. The Nissan name comes from Neon Sangyo, which was shortened in the Tokyo Stock Exchange. That abbreviation eventually became Nissan. So the name was not created by a branding department trying to sound cool. It came from financial shorthand, which is probably the least emotional origin possible for a car brand. Number 46. The Nissan Juke's interior was inspired by a motorcycle. The center console, shapes, and controls were supposed to feel more like a bike than a normal crossover. Whether that worked is up for debate, but it explains why the Juke always felt like someone designed a car after drinking espresso next to a scooter. Number 47. The Skyline did not start inside Nissan the way many people think. It came from Prince Motor Company, which had its own racing division and its own history before Nissan bought Prince in 1966. That acquisition gave Nissan the Skyline name and the roots of what eventually became Nismo. Nissan did not just invent the Skyline. It absorbed it like a boss character. Number 48. The black roof option on the new Z is not painted. It is actually a wrap. And the chrome trim on the side is designed to look like a katana blade. That is such a Japanese sports car detail. Modern, slightly fake, but still cool enough that you forgive it. Number 49. Nissan has used design competitions between its own global teams. For the 350Z, teams from America, Europe, and Japan competed, and the American team won. For the R32 GT-R, Nissan blended different design ideas together. Instead of letting one studio dominate, Nissan turned design into an internal fight club. Number 50. Nissan made self-parking office chairs. Yes, office chairs. Clap your hands, and the chairs slide themselves back into place around the conference table. It was a publicity stunt, but it was brilliant. Nissan took parking assist and applied it to furniture, because apparently even chairs need driver aids. Number 51. In the early 1970s, Nissan ran Skyline ads featuring an American couple named Ken and Mary. The campaign became so popular that the Skyline itself picked up the nickname Kinry. Imagine building a legendary Japanese car and having its identity shaped by a romantic ad campaign with two foreigners. Marketing is weird, but it worked. Number 52. The 1984 Nissan Laurel was the first car in the world with retractable power mirrors. Today, folding mirrors are normal, but back then this was a premium, futuristic detail. Nissan has always been random like that. One minute they are making a cube with dashboard carpet, the next they are quietly inventing features everyone uses later.